All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to EMAS Sports. This is Whitney Dowds. Welcome back to Beyond the Bases, the official EMAS Sports podcast that provides you with behind the scenes looks at players, coaches, and other unique stories around baseball in the greater Boston area. Today, I have Carson Lund, the director of the movie Eephus, who stops by to review his journey as a movie director and share the impact of the movie on our sports community. Welcome, Carson.
Thanks for having me. Good to
All
be
right,
here.
well, perfect. And you're the first movie director I've ever had on here, so that's a great honor as well. And I'm glad to have you on. So we'll get right into things. So for those unfamiliar with this movie, can you describe how you got started on the project and give it just a general overview about the movie itself and where the idea originated? Because this is such a great story, and I want to make sure I share it with as many people as possible. So the floor is yours.
Certainly. So Eephus is a passion project, a real labor of love of independent feature film that I directed and wrote. The movie tells the story of one final game being played in a rec baseball league, like a casual adult recreational league in New England. The final game being played on a field that's set for demolition after the season is over. So it's a sort of end of an era comedy about two teams, about 20 or so guys who have been playing together for years and against one another and with one another, and they're having to kind of take stock of many decades of competitive friendship and what that means for the future, and where they go from here. It's a sort of a bittersweet end of an era comedy. The film premiered in Cannes last year, and then went on to a theatrical release here in America in March through Music Box Films, our distributor. And since then, it's had a remarkable run here. It's played many places all across the country and is now on streaming services. You can find it on Mubi right now. It's also you can buy it on Amazon, I believe. So yeah, it's been a really remarkable run, more than I could have ever expected or hoped for, frankly, with a first time feature.
Did you have a favorite scene that you loved shooting and directing, and what was it and why?
Favorite scene? No, the whole thing was. So one thing to know about the film is the film really is the one game. It's a sort of a dramatization of an entire baseball game. So it sort of flows in a almost real time. We watch these men play, and it's like you're there that Sunday afternoon watching. So in a way, the whole film is one scene actually. I worked very hard to make sure that there was lighting continuity, so it really would feel like a one day, one game. It's hard to pinpoint any one particular scene, and because my cast was actually present on set the entire month at this field, it felt like everything was just flowing into one. Each scene was flowing into another, and we are all playing baseball and goofing off and joking around, and that energy just fed into kind of everything. There were a few scenes that were a little more challenging in terms of the baseball, the level of play we needed to capture on screen, and certain plays that were harder to accomplish. I've been a baseball player my whole life, so I actually kind of had to be a coach on this film and sort of help some of these actors kind of relearn basic basic you know skills of baseball. So some of those scenes were very hard, but also very fun, and we sort of just embraced the comedy inherent in a bunch of aging men fumbling around on the baseball field. I consider myself one of those guys.
Now, you were talking about earlier, you had, every character in the movie had a different storyline that they brought with them, different struggles. How do you balance that, each of those storylines to make one, make continuity in the movie, I guess, if that makes sense, to have like one, direction, but you have every character bringing something to the table. So how do you balance that?
Hmm. Yeah, it was a question we got a lot in the early stages when we were trying to find people to partner with and people to support this project. The question like, well, how are we going to get audiences to care about this many this many characters who are all sort of treated equally in the script? And the way I see it is the all these characters are different shades of one another. They're all going through the same thing, having to say goodbye to this field, and they're all just dealing with it in slightly different ways. But it's a very simple narrative setup, I think, that allows you to kind of um, find your entry point with different characters, people you might relate to, or maybe resemble you, or people you've known over the years. um, that was really important for me to kind of pull from real life and my own experience playing and the kind of teammates I've had over the years, and try to make sure all these characters felt very real, and then of course letting the actors bring their own personality into the roles as well. So that was all really crucial. But when we wrote the script, we actually kind of outlined it as a baseball game as well. Alongside writing the script, it was like figuring out the box score. What happens in this game? What are the plays? What are the lineups? When do the runs get scored? All those questions allowed us to see the film as almost like a grid of time. So we could sort of partition those different beats between different characters, and it was really important for me to have like a sense of kind of equity between the different people on the team, again because I see them all as being different shades of one kind of collective protagonist.
That makes sense. And then, of course, one of the characters or one of the people in the movie was Bill Spaceman Lee. And so, if you want to just kind of talk about his role in the movie, and because he's such an important part of this movie as well, and what kind of impact it had on the film in general.
Yeah, Bill's a legend, a baseball legend. For those who don't know, he played in the Red Sox in the '70s. Famously gave up a home run in the World Series, but we don't need to talk about that. And he also famously threw the Eephus quite regularly. So when we named this film Eephus and had this very critical monologue halfway through the movie about this pitch and how it relates to the movie's themes of time passing and the kind of the way it plays with perception, I wanted that to all be part of the film. So when we decided that was the title of the film, we said, how do we find someone who has thrown the Eephus historically who will be in this film? So I had to find a way to get in touch with him, and I ended up calling his landline in Vermont. Fortunately, he answered. We kept up a phone correspondence, and you know, he was excited to be in the film and bring his own personality into it. We gave him a script, of course, and I'm not sure he stuck to the script. He wanted to say everything in his own words. I think that's the kind of guy he is, resistant to authority. So that brought a sort of off the wall kind of energy to that scene in the movie when he does enter the game and pitches. And we let him just improvise a bit, and he sort of danced around the edges of what we wrote, but he seemed to really understand what we needed out of him and what the point of that character was, which was really a sort of almost like a ghost from baseball's past arriving to give one final send off and sort of bless the field in a way before disappearing again. So he brought that sort of larger than life mystical aura to the movie and to that character.
Well, I'm sure you also had some challenges with, you kind of briefly mentioned at the beginning, playing at night as well and the lighting and stuff like that. Or you might have mentioned it in an interview, or not interview, but when people ask questions at the movie, which we'll get to
Mm-hmm.
in a second. But what were some of the challenges, or were there any kind of bloopers that you had that you want to talk about that were your favorite looking back on it? It may have been frustrating in that moment because you wanted to have that scene done perfectly, but at the same time, looking back, you're like, okay, that was actually kind of funny. So if you had any moments like that, feel free to share them if you have any with us.
Yeah, what I will do is plug our Blu-ray. We have a Blu-ray on sale actually, that you can find on the Music Box website, or by going to our Instagram, Eephus Film, at Eephus Film. But there's a whole supplement on that Blu-ray of a bunch of bloopers that we captured. I would say a lot of the bloopers, or what one would usually consider a blooper, those made it into the film because this is a comedy, and I found a lot of the sloppiness on the field was something I wanted to use, wanted to keep. But there are a number of bloopers that are quite fun. on that Blu-ray. Yeah, it was just an endless amount of fun on set. And then when we did shoot at night, it was we had to do it in early November because we wanted to push all that stuff later in the year when there wasn't so much foliage to capture. Beautiful foliage. All the leaves had kind of fallen off the trees at that point. So we shot all our night scenes, and we basically did it as one straight week of overnight shooting, very late nights through the night. And of course, that was the week that the cold weather came in, and the whole field started to freeze, and it dropped below freezing in the middle of the night. And of course, I had my whole cast out there wearing baseball uniforms with a light long sleeve shirt, and that's it. So in a way, that whole week was a blooper. It was difficult to get through, but everyone persevered through it. And the other funny thing is we had all these cars on the field, which you'll see in the film if you watch it. But these kind of that plays a role in the plot. And those cars were all these beautiful vintage cars, muscle cars from the 70s, 60s even, and they kept breaking down because they hadn't been on the road in a very long time. So we'd have to kickstart those cars pretty frequently because they were our light source for that scene as well. So that was just a fun, crazy time. I think all my cast was like huddling next to the little warmer in the dugout that we had, almost like it was a bonfire.
I was gonna say, where did you guys get those cars from? I think you mentioned it in the Q&A after the movie, but for anyone who wasn't there or wasn't at the game,
Yeah,
in Douglas, if you want to kind of describe that, and we'll move on to the next question after that. But I just wanted to cut that or put that in there because I know that's something that was brought up at the Q&A afterwards.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, those cars were actually donated for the film by a man named Bob Josie, who is a local to Douglas, Mass, where we shot the film. Uh, we are endlessly appreciative of Bob for doing that, and his whole family as well for facilitating that. Bob's actually in the film. There's a scene where one of the characters gets driven away from the game. He gets picked up by his cousin to go to his niece's christening, and that's one of Bob's cars, and Bob is actually the one driving that car in that scene. So he is in the film, and unfortunately, Bob passed away before being able to see the film. That happened. I can't remember exactly when, but it was before the North American premiere. So quite sad. R.I.P. Bob. But we thank you forever, and you live on in the film.
You showed this movie obviously at the Soldier Field in Douglas, as well as in Somerville at the movie theater there. So looking back at those experiences, can you reflect on what each of those showings meant to you and the cast? Because I'm sure having large crowds as you did, or at least from what I saw, large crowds must have meant a lot to you guys. So just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, this movie just keeps on giving. It's had really quite a life, and we've done now two of these kind of smaller tours that we call barnstorming tours, in reference to old traveling minor league baseball teams. Would go game to game, city to city. So we call them the barnstorming tours. We did one in the winter, and we just did this one in summer as a way to bring the film back to theaters for a bit. I think we did 7 dates across the East Coast. These dates have these screenings have just been really, really validating, really reassuring that there are people who just still want to go to the movies and want to have a nice night out and enjoy when a film has a sort of event angle to it. When there's cast and crew there, and there's you know merch to buy and this sort of thing. It just makes it a little more special. And one thing that was really great for me was to see all the people coming out to the screening that had not seen the film before, even though it's online and streaming. Uh, they hadn't seen it; it was their first time, and they were excited to be at a theater to watch it. So that's been amazing, and especially the support we get locally in New England, where I am from. And we continue to have fantastic turnout in Massachusetts and all across the area. So those were two really special events, especially especially the one in Douglas. I mean, we did a reunion there. We played an entire baseball game with the cast and crew before we showed the movie on the field, and to see the film on that field behind home plate, there are shots in the film that point towards home plate and the Welcome to Soldiers Field sign, and then when those were up on screen, you were also seeing that around it. So it was very very strange, very surreal. And also, as the stars came out and you could hear all the bugs in the woods nearby around you, it was all like it was life and art kind of interacting in a really beautiful way. So that was a really awesome event. Just the town of Douglas was such an incredible, incredible base of support throughout the whole project, and that continued at that event.
I was gonna say one of my favorite movies to watch is Field of Dreams, and it kind of had the same feeling. Obviously, they're two different movies with different storylines, but it had some of
Mm.
the same like feelings of nostalgia and just as a longtime baseball fan myself. So I'm wondering if you had any inspiration from any other movies like Field of Dreams or other movies maybe I'm not mentioning that kind of inspired the way you directed and shot the movie the way you did.
Yeah, it's I do love baseball movies. I think most people do. That there's this sort of like, it seems to be a consensus that baseball films are that there's something inherently cinematic about that genre. I would agree, but that being said, I didn't really watch many, or I didn't rewatch many of these baseball films before shooting Eephus. We wanted to stay really fresh and see it from a new perspective, maybe more of a place of real experience playing on these teams. And for me, this was about trying to capture the atmosphere of the Sunday League games that I am a part of, um, and that my dad is a part of. I wanted to bring that onto the screen. So, and I think that a lot of these great baseball films from the American canon, I don't think they really capture the feeling of playing baseball. They're usually about a player, like one or two players who have a narrative arc throughout the movie, and maybe occasionally we watch them actually play baseball, but it's more about something else, more about some sort of character growth. I really wanted to capture like the rhythm of baseball. So I didn't watch those films again for the most part. I was thinking more about I was using taking as inspiration more the films that are about kind of like the end of a ritual. There's a number of these movies I could think of, like The Last Picture Show and Prairie Home Companion by Robert Altman, who's a big inspiration for me. These are the movies that had, I think, more to give in terms of inspiration for this project, just in terms of how they moved around this ensemble and used the kind of like real time structure and a single location to tell their story. Those were bigger inspirations for me than any baseball movie actually.
Okay, and then obviously one organization that and this is how I heard about this movie and this event. The Boston Metro Baseball League had a part to play in this as well with Brett Rudy and Dan Field, among others, umpires, and I think they were broadcasting the game as well in the booth, if I remember correctly. Um, or they
Yeah.
had some role. They had multiple roles. It seems like to play with this. So just if you want to talk about your appreciation for them, or if you want to just shout them out, and just any role that they had in helping you guys put this together, I'll let you kind of take the floor on that.
Yeah, just of course. I mean, we appreciated all of the support we had at that event, especially from Boston Metro Baseball. We definitely needed a few fill-ins, and we were able to get those players through organizations like that. Because a lot of my cast have played baseball in their lives, but they aren't necessarily in a place where they can do 9 innings straight. So we needed some extra players that day. Uh, as for the other aspects of the event, we handled a lot of that ourselves as a production company. We brought in the band, the Good Deli, friends of ours who also their music features in the film. They're from New York. They came all the way up for the screening to kind of play music. Sorry, not the screening, during after the game to play music in between innings. I think it brought a really fun energy to the entire day. Also, the broadcasting team up in the booth was our own doing. We filmed that game from a number of different angles with the intention of putting it together like a real baseball broadcast. And it's probably going to be very long and will be interesting to watch. I haven't even looked at it myself yet. I haven't had a chance, but we would love to put that out on online somewhere just as a kind of fun memento of that day. But yeah, that was quite a bit of work pulling that together, but a lot of people to thank, more than I can mention on this call right here. But yeah, a lot of people pulled serious weight to make that day what it was. I would love to do this event in future years. Hopefully, we can make it kind of a annual or once every 2 years or something, and film it each year. Who knows? It'll be fun. Let's grow the cult.
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, this movie is so good that it should be shown as many times as possible, in different, arenas or environments. I mean, especially at that field. I'd love to be able to actually, I wasn't able to go this year, but I'd love to be able to actually go in person next year, the year after, if I have time,
Mm-hmm.
or if not, go see it in the movie again and just experience it again, because it's that kind of movie like Field of Dreams or other classic sports movies where you just have to go see it, and so it has that kind of feeling. So I appreciate that. Did you have a favorite? Because you said you've grown up playing baseball. Do you have a favorite baseball memory? Just overall, it doesn't have to necessarily be this movie, but just in general, do you have one that kind of stands out?
Yeah, probably going to Cooperstown when I was a kid, or playing in a Cooperstown tournament. Like it was sort of like an all-star tournament. I was with my local Nashua, New Hampshire team, um, and we all stayed, you know, at the sports complex for, I think it was a week and a half or so. My family was also there. It was like a real summer camp kind of vibe, and we didn't play very well. I don't recall us playing very well, at least, and that didn't really matter because we just had such a great time being in Cooperstown and having so many people, so many teams from all over the country there, and we were doing, we were trading pins. That was great aspect of that event. I got to see the Hall of Fame, and yeah, that was really special. One of those things that just solidifies your love of the game at a young age. The other memory that jumps to mind is when I was a kid and at that point had never hit a home run, and I hit a fly ball that hit the very top of the chain link fence, right where the little triangle goes up, bounced right off back into the field. So yeah, it's a game that doesn't always it's not always giving, to say the least.
Well, I mean, if you hit a home run at Cooperstown, that you can't really beat that. Besides maybe meeting like a current Red Sox player, or it's one of those childhood dreams of like hitting it at a historic park.
Right,
Not
exactly.
not gonna hit many at Fenway just because I probably don't have the strength to, but like Cooperstown would be nice, if I ever got the chance, but probably not. Um, so, last couple questions. So, if you had to pick one former or current Red Sox player to play in this movie, if you had to do it again, or in a reenactment, if you did it again in the future, who would it be and why?
A current Red Sox player?
Yeah, current or former.
Former. I would go former then. I mean, at one point I was really interested in having Dennis Eckersley play the character Ed in our movie. Uh, he's Eckersley's just such a legend, especially of New England baseball. I had no idea if I could get him, and sure enough, I could not get him. I couldn't find a way to actually get through to him, but I reached out to an agent. And I think it was just silence, but that would have been really cool. Also, like Jim Rice would be really cool. These are people who obviously have media training, so that they've been on camera quite a bit. So I felt like maybe there's a chance, but it's quite a commitment, obviously, to be in a film for an entire month, and not, I'm very happy with my entire cast and what they were able to give to the film in terms of time and effort and just their entire spirit and personality they threw into these roles. So I can't really say I would trade any of them for someone else. You know, at this point, it's hard to separate the film from yeah, it's hard to separate them from their roles. That's how I see it. So
Okay, and then final question: what or where can people help support your movie next, or where can they watch it? Just kind of final words for you, and I'll let you have the floor of what people can do next, and I'll put that infographic over it as you're talking toward the end. But the floor is now yours.
yeah, like I said before, the film is available to stream. It's on Mubi. That's a subscription service. I believe if you have Amazon, you can also buy it through Amazon. Um, we that all the thing about independent film distribution nowadays is it these licenses can change, and maybe in a year we'll be somewhere else online. But the hope that I have is to continue to bring this film to theaters, to do things like the barnstorming tour as much as we can, periodically, so that we can bring the movie back into the communal theater environment that I think I value so much, and I've seen how much that kind of benefits the film, the experience of the film, seeing it with people, seeing it big and loud. That's important too. So that's you can watch it at home for now, and I do think it's a movie that rewards repeat viewings. There's a lot of information to take in, a lot of character detail to take in. So the more you see it, the more jokes you pick up on, and I hope it just continues to build its mild cult status. Maybe it'll grow into a true cult film. We also have a bunch of merch that is very cool. I must shout out my brother Eric Lund, who did a number of roles on the film, and more recently has been heavily involved in creating, designing this merchandise. So we have hats, we have shirts, we have posters, all available on the Music Box website. There's a merch website there, so that's a great thing to do. Also, the Blu-ray is available there, and that's our most recent. Uh, that's the most recent thing we put out, and it's quite a feast. I would say we worked very hard on the extras, and just kind of giving the audience a bit more of a full experience of the project, really understanding kind of its origins and behind the scenes and all this stuff. So it's a cool little keepsake if you're an Eephus fan. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.